Okay, we're here for the Elkhorn Area School Board meeting of the school board, Monday, November 14th, 2022, 6 p.m. Meeting here in the Susan Kelly Lively Boardroom of the 1887 building. Can we have call to order, please?
Yes, Mrs. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Gayhart.
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Here.
Mr. Martell.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell, who is excused. Mrs. Ray.
Here.
Mr. Scarrow.
Here.
Ms. Colton.
Here.
Ms. Williams.
We have a quorum, and this notice has been noticed for state statute. Community participation. I'm assuming from the audience it's everyone that is going to speak about something that's on the agenda. Was there anyone else here? Did we have any correspondence, Mr. Tadlock?
I did not have any correspondence.
Okay, we're going to dispense with reading that. Now we're down to director's report and Tibbetts Elementary student presentation.
Thanks, your chair. So long that if it's okay, we'll sit.
Yo, you must stand.
I'm used to standing because we usually bring kids, but we didn't this time. So for those who don't know, I'm Brian Frost, principal at Tibbetts Elementary. I brought Michelle Shaw here with me. She is our instructional coach. And then Miss Amy G is going to tag team her director's report with our school report this morning. So, we're going to be talking about our National Blue Ribbon School designation, their recent trip out to DC in order to obtain the award. We brought the award so that you all can see that as well. Thank you. Goals of tonight's presentation, basically give you a brief history of what that National Blue Ribbon School program looks like. Talk a little bit about our application process, as well as share the event itself that we were able to attend in DC, and then extend to you all an invitation to our celebration at the end of the week at the school.
All right, so I'm going to take us on our history lesson this afternoon or this evening. What is the National Blue Ribbon Schools program? What's interesting is we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of this program. So it was founded in 1982 by the U.S. Secretary of Education. And, the premise behind starting this program was to just highlight what are excellent schools doing, what can we learn from them, what's some of the things that they all have in common as, they hope to guide all of the schools across the nation. They come from all areas of the United States. There'll be a map that's coming up that'll show you that, but rural areas, urban, suburban, public, non-public schools are all included in this search. And again, the purpose of the award is to bring public attention to schools for their overall excellence. So, high achievement, academic achievement, or progress in closing those achievement gaps. So there's two areas for nomination. And again, you can be nominated, but then there is a lengthy application process that you then go through. You work closely with the State Department of Education on that process. They have eyes on that every step of the way as well. And then it is submitted I think it was late April, early May when we submitted it last year. Okay. So the public schools are nominated by the chief state school officers in all 50 states, as well as the District of Columbia, different U.S. territories, as well as schools based abroad on military bases are also eligible. Non-public schools then are nominated by the Council for American Private Education, and there is a maximum number of 420 nominations that go out each year. Of those nominations, 297 received an award this year. And then, just like our delegation that, is sent to Washington, that's based on the number of students in our public schools here in Wisconsin.
When I was informed from the state that we were nominated, they get a total of 8 nominations for the state of Wisconsin. Wow. So just to be nominated is a big honor because it's just one of 8 schools. You have to go through that application process.
So to give you an idea of who were the other schools in Wisconsin, we've just kind of listed them there. So we were able to talk with some of those. We were sitting with the Baraboo School District for the award ceremony.
Where is Greenwood? I honestly don't know where Greenwood is.
And I didn't check the map.
Okay. I know all the other names, I just don't.
There's a lot of greens where we know where it is, but not Greenwood, right?
Right.
All right.
Interesting that it's a lot of elementary.
Yeah.
Right.
It is predominantly elementary. We looked through the whole guidebook as well.
Right, not necessarily the case nationwide.
Okay,
There were obviously middle and high schools
okay,
designated as well.
just the ones from Wisconsin have.
Seems to be this year, that was the case.
As I said before, there's the two areas for nomination. And I'm going to kick it over to Brian now as he's going to talk about what we did last spring.
Yeah, maybe I missed that. So those two areas of designation would be academic excellence or closing the academic gap. In our case, we were nominated for the academic excellence piece. We were nominated in the spring. And then, once that nomination came through, then we had to look at how we wanted to apply, because again, that application was lengthy. They're very specific about what needed to be addressed in that application. And so the three of us up here, two very well-versed writers and then a math major. So we also tapped into Ms. Darcy Gruber's knowledge as well. So the four of us did the majority of the writing. And then from there, we shared that, that application piece with our leadership team so that they could kind of, hey, maybe we should talk about this piece, or hey, maybe you're talking too much about that piece. And, hey, what about this or what about that? And having all of those eyes on that, and then shared with the entire staff as well before we sent that application piece off. That is the photo that goes with our application on the National Blue Ribbon school website. And it was hard to just pick one photo, so we cheated a little bit and made a collage of what we thought made Tibbetts unique. The portion that I wrote dealt with the school overview, and you can see that really deals with what the community looks like, what are our demographics of Tibbetts Elementary, some of those key strategies that we find useful and engaging and certainly impactful for our kids, whether that's academically, emotionally, physically, socially, culturally. Then again, some of those innovative pieces, and we could also talk about some of the things we did during our COVID shutdown, and then return back to the buildings in regards to what we found. So really the key pieces there, I think that separate Tibbetts is that community pride and involvement. Some of the photos there certainly share that. Tibbetts Palooza, there's Miss Esther celebrating some of that staff development and collaboration. It's not just a piecemeal approach to how we treat each and every student at Tibbetts. We've had a large focus on small group instruction and how we can really identify all of our students and really what their needs are. We continue to grow in that area, but anytime we can break that large group down into smaller groups focused on those individual needs, we find power in that. And then student engagement both in and outside of the classroom. Try to highlight that.
We're highlighting just 3 areas from the application tonight, but the blue attachments that we provided tonight kind of gives you an overview of how deep some of those sections were. So when it came to curriculum and instruction, obviously this is where I got to do some essay writing. And then had to keep it on, I'm never good at the words like under 500, under 300, under 500, under 800, under. So,
And that was usually the feedback that we
Yeah.
receive from deep guys. I get too many words. Too many words. When we say 300, we mean you can't go over
Yeah.
300.
So out went the adjectives and we had to just like bare bone it. But so we needed to describe our core curriculum, instructional approaches, different assessments that we utilize, describe other curriculum areas. So the first one deals with the main content areas: science, social studies, ELA, and math. Then we talked about other curriculum areas such as, the allied arts. And then we had to talk about how we tailor instruction, our interventions and assessments to meet all of those diverse needs and different student populations. One of the things that I got excited about as I finished this and while we were writing for Tibbetts, the curriculum and instruction part is basically what's happening at 3 of our elementaries across the district. It's just not an isolated case here. So it was really kind of a nice experience to go through and write this and know like we do have that consistency across the board, and that felt very good. Thanks, Jason. So we included some photos here to kind of highlight what that looked like. We started our response talking about our shared commitments, how that grounds us across the district, of course at Tibbetts as well, in building those relationships, how responsive we're being to the student needs. We always have an eye on that level of rigor and that it's matching where those students' abilities are. So they're all appropriately challenged and in that zone that we like to see them in. And then the relevance, do the students understand why they're learning, what they're learning, and how that will move them forward in their, career aspirations, or at least to the next grade level. Avid school-wide is an important part of that elementary foundation work that we do. Our multi-level systems of support, used to be known as RTI, our WIN program, has also received state recognition, so we noted that. Responsive literacy program, and we had to lay out, how are we teaching reading in the district, as well as our math workshop model and the tools we use. Project Lead the Way. We recently adopted an Into Social Studies curriculum in grades 3 through 5, and then wrote, based on the new standards, our curriculum for K2, which includes as many field trip experiences, hand-on experiences, service projects in the community, just to make social studies more relevant at that level. We've implemented the zones of regulation. I think we've talked about that here across K5 as part of our SEL programming. Lots of different allied arts opportunities as students rotate to those specials. All of this is then very data-driven with their PLCs and then different checkpoints throughout the year to make sure that our students are on point, getting what they need during that wing time. And then we work to support all learners so that cross communication with our EL teacher being based now at Tibbetts a few more hours a week, in addition to working closely with special education and trying to launch our full plan co-serve model more intently this year. So those were the things we highlighted in that section.
And then the next piece is about school culture and climate, and I was happy to help with this one. I've been honored to work with 3 great principals, and I'm honored every day to work alongside the staff at Tibbetts School. First of all, I want to say thank you for having us, and thank you for Washington, D.C. When Greg Wells left the principalship and handed it over to Brian, one of the last things he said to me was that I should work as hard as I could to preserve the culture of Tibbetts School, because that's kind of what sets us apart from the other schools that he had been working at. And he also reminded me of that famous saying about strategy for breakfast. And so we tried to highlight that in the school culture and climate piece. We had to talk about how our school engages and motivates and provides students with a positive environment, talk about the strategies that we found successful in working with families, because that's a challenge. It was really a challenge over COVID. And then the last part was where how do we have an environment where teachers feel valued and supported. So when you walk into Tibbetts, I feel our school has a happy feel. I have been told that by multiple parents, substitutes, volunteers. Our school just feels right. I've had new students who are really come and tell me that our school just feels happy, and we work very hard to preserve that. Students are greeted multiple times a day before they're even reaching their classroom. They probably talk to 4 different adults in the building before they've actually reached their classroom. Like Mrs. G said, those social emotional states are checked in with daily off their zones of regulation. Schedules are made with students in mind. We are student-centered, I would say, all the time. We don't make a decision without making sure that the decision is good for kids. When our littles need a break, that's when they have a recess. When our olders need a break, that's when they have a recess. Classroom instruction is engaging and student-centered. I've got a couple of pictures following to show that. Parents and guardians are viewed as partners in their child's education. We're so happy to have our volunteers back in the building this year. And staff tries hard to stay in touch with one another through our special events. As a matter of fact, on Wednesday, we're having our November Staffsgiving, so if you're free Wednesday at lunch, then I know. Our staff motto is all of us for all of them, and I really think that we live that every single day. Here's some pictures. That first picture on the upper left is the tornado drill from last month, and I know it's hard to see, but we're all seated in the hallway. Many of us had a child, a crying, upset child on our laps. And if you didn't have a child on your lap, you were laying there in front of them trying to entertain them and have the time go a little faster because that was a long drill. The next one over is Mr. Frost, AK Reader Man, reading to our kindergartners to talk to them about pointer power. Over on the right-hand side, you have Mrs. Beagle's kindergarten class on our annual pumpkin patch and hay wagon ride through the grounds of school. Down below, you have people coming in the building right at the beginning of Set Up for Success Night. You can see it was just a crowd coming right down the hall. The picture in the middle on the bottom is Veterans Day Assembly from last week. Those are our little stars in the front, our little kindergarten version, second graders singing the America song. And then on the bottom left, we have some family engagement from Set Up for Success Night. One more, Mr. Pedlock, thank you. Some of these pictures are just the greetings in the morning. Like I said, most kids have talked to at least 4 adults before they even get to their person in their classroom. Mr. Kleist and his father, Mr. Kleist, came today and did a fur trading expo where that's Harper Galani in the middle. She is our little resident fur trader. And then Mr. Kleist and his dad served as the purveyors. We've opened lunch back up so people can come and visit their children at lunch. And we had quite a few for a Monday today. And I like that picture of Mrs. Heiser in the middle because Mrs. Heiser was walking down the hall at arrival this morning and somebody had drawn her a picture over the weekend and wanted to make sure that she had that in her hand.
So moving on to the awards recognition ceremony in DC, a couple great pictures of different pieces of architecture in the city that we were able to visit, but they did keep us fairly busy through the time that the museums would have been open. The keynote speakers that are shared, Cindy Martin, she actually filled in for the Secretary of Education who was sick with COVID and so wasn't able to attend the program. She introduced or was the keynote speaker prior to the awards being handed out. Mr. Russell is a high school teacher from Ohio. He was named Teacher of the Year. He had a great message just about the impact that teachers have on students. You don't know when you have that impact on students. A lot of times you find out, years down the road what kind of impact. But just providing that security and that opportunity is kind of his message. Mr. Barnes, he introduced a group of principals who were, I forget the first name, but Bell Award winners. So similarly, there is an award for principals that make great impacts in their position, and he was introducing them. We had some sessions that we were able to attend. I thought it would be interesting for you to see what kind of the hot topics are in education nationwide. So that social emotional behavioral wellness for all, Ms. Schaaf was able to attend that, and she came back basically sharing just how we feel, or she felt like most of the things that they talked about we have in place, which was good to hear and made us feel like, all right, we're doing the right work in that area. Solving educator shortages, making that a career path that's attractive. That's an interesting one. We didn't have a chance to attend, but that comprehensive after-school programming was another one that we chose not to because Amy and I both attended the Growing Your Leadership piece, which again I think we shared a lot of the pieces that that we've had in place, specifically when it comes time to covering for classes right now. That balance of management versus leadership, because a lot of times we just got to get through the day because we're short staffed. So hearing what other people are doing in the same roles was interesting to hear. Yeah. The mindfulness session was one that wasn't an option, that was on its own. So I was, it was interesting to see that that was offered as a singleton, and so we certainly attended that piece and could see the power of using mindfulness in different areas of our school and helping kids breathe at times where the stress is certainly there. And then that principal leadership panel and what I heard from them is, hey, this is great that you've earned this designation as a National Blue Ribbon school. The work still continues, so that was powerful as well. Next slide just shows the actual moment we received the award. Ava Kumi, she was the director of the program, so she did all the handing out. Michelle and I, or Mishaf and I, afterwards with the program as well. So those were the two awards that we were distributed. I brought the plaque with. Wanted to see the flag and some underneath as well. And it was one of those honors that I hope it's not once in a career, but certainly if it is once in a career, I would feel pretty special for being there that day and representing to the school and our school district. I would say the only thing we need to do is we need to pick up the school and move it to Alabama or Arkansas because the schools literally were read alphabetically by state. So of the 297, and we had kids and staff who were waiting to hear us announce. I think we were the third from the.
Now you know what the FFA group feels like every year at the national.
And I also felt like a heavyweight wrestler because 2/3 of the crowd had their awards and were boarding their planes. So it was
Good analogy.
But no, so we were certainly able to celebrate staff. We've talked about that, the power. I know many staff members have talked to me about just how proud they are to work in a building that has been designated as a National Blue Ribbon school. And we feel it is important to also celebrate with that group, our students, our staff, and our community, our families and our communities. So we're going to do that here this Friday with, several pieces of, we'll have a couple speakers, a couple videos to include our kids. Again, everyone is welcome, and it should be a great celebration.
I'd like to put in a couple words first. Congratulations to Tibbetts and the staff for all the hard work. And I know in going through that process, Amy mentioned that it's a systematic approach that we use at all three of the elementary schools. And so we're fortunate, I think, when Tibbetts receives this honor and this recognition, it's exemplary of the good work that's going on. And as a parent, whether your kid goes to Westside or to Jackson or to Tibbetts, you can be rest assured that all of them are getting that entire list of supports and instruction and that same training. And I know we work very hard to be very tight on that. Something as a side note, but achievement was the reason why Tibbetts was recognized for this. NWA, who does the MAP assessment, recently came out with a study looking at how schools did through COVID. And I'd be remiss if I didn't compliment the elementary schools. In the state of Wisconsin, in reading, from 2019 to 2022, schools dropped an average of 6.1 achievement points in reading. Our grades 3 through 5, which is what they looked at, actually went up in reading from 2019 to 2022. So despite COVID, despite everything that was going on, our grades in 3 through 5 through the elementary, they were looked at increase on achievement rather than going down. And I think that's such a testament to the hard work of the teachers, the staff, and the leadership during that time period. So thank you for that. I think one other statistical point I'll bring up, just because it's bizarre, Tibbetts was recognized as Blue Ribbon School for achievement. This year's, I don't know, they haven't been released yet, but I'm not sure the exact number. This year's school report card for Tibbetts will actually go down a couple of points, despite the achievement level going up even higher. I believe we figured you're the third highest achievement level amongst all elementary schools in the state.
Wow.
Yeah, and drop for some of the drop. It's just how the report card formula was. So when I,
The metrics of the calculations, absolutely.
so that's why I always tell parents, don't just, ever judge a school based on the report card. Here's an example of one of the top schools, they even higher on achievement, get the report card.
Yeah.
Goofiness.
I played for graduate,
Yeah.
I mean, for one thing, for winning this, but also for celebrating this as part of our district.
Yeah.
It's not just you as a standalone, but the elementary work together, the staff works together, you share services. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yes.
So we look at it as yes, it's Tibbetts, but it's also a district.
It's a system, and it could have been any of the three.
Right. Thank you.
What are the things that get you nominated? Like, how did you get nominated?
The start is, it's standardized test scores. That's the start.
Okay, okay.
That's the start, but that's why that application process goes into way more than
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Because we need to demonstrate all those other aspects of a quality school.
So I believe they nominate 8 total. I think they look at 4 achievement and 4 closing gap schools in the state.
Okay,
And it's just that assessment team from the state.
got it.
Picks who they want to nominate.
Great. Thank you for sharing with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Congrats. I'll have Jody post the award ceremony. So we don't need to worry about the board members going into it.
Yeah, we're planning to stream it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is overnight travel request from the Alfred Middle School Band Department. We have a couple of representatives here. Thank you.
Well, hello, I'm Sarah Wicke and this is Lisa Schultz, and we are the high school and middle school band staff. And we are here tonight to request an overnight field trip for the 7th and 8th grade band students this coming May to go to a festival called Beyond the Notes. And this started a couple years ago. We were looking for some sort of experience for them to have a performance experience outside of our schools and outside of our community. Something that would help motivate them to be having the practice goals and things to work toward, and also be a bonding experience for the group and having that type of experience too. And this particular festival, we tried to get in last year and we were too late. This festival fills up within about 20 minutes of their online registration. Like, we were on that registration site
it was
at
March
8 o'clock PM, March 8th for this coming
It's like
May.
the summer school program.
Yeah, we were each on a computer. Right. So we were excited that we were able to reserve a spot. The time they were able to give us was 8:45 on Friday morning. It's a 2-day festival, Thursday and Friday. And again, because of how many people there were, even though we did it within the first 15 minutes, we got a really early morning time. So then that came to, as we were trying to plan this, that the best option for it would be to go on Thursday evening and do it as an overnight so that we're there. It's in the Dells.
When you wrote that up, you said performances at 8:45, and I was wondering if it was AM or PM.
Oh,
AM.
AM,
But
yes.
I'm like, well, they could have to stay around all day.
They
so-
do have performances of, like, I think until 8:30
Right.
at night.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also, there's your half hour warm up time also. So like, to make sure that we're there and set up everything, we thought that it would be helpful and a fun experience for the students if we go the night before.
And last year we did Six Flags, and it was a really great experience where the kids got to not only hang out with each other, we did a performance, we were able to get audio feedback after the fact. So they sent it to us, we could, in rehearsal the next day, we could listen to our performance, and the judges were actually talking while we were doing that. This, they'll be able to get that live, immediate feedback. And we got to see that camaraderie build. I've seen a lot of relationships that are stronger this year in 8th graders than they were last year. And I think that we built a lot of stronger relationships with the students because they got to see us outside of the classroom where we're just trying to get them to be quiet and play music. So that was really nice. I feel like I've built a lot stronger relationships with them because of that. This particular music festival is geared only towards middle school bands.
Middle school band, choir, and orchestra.
Band, choir, and orchestra. Right. So when we did it last year, we were playing after a high school band. So when they gave us our scores, they had just heard, you know, a high school orchestra play. So this is all middle school level music, music programs. So the judges know what level we are coming at, which we really appreciate the ability to be judged based on the level we're at, not, you know, where they should be in high school.
And part of the festival also includes the students listening to another ensemble also. So we have a warm-up time, we perform, we listen to ensemble, and then they go to a group lunch together.
And for this one, because there were so many people that were trying to get into it, we actually combined the 7th and 8th grade bands together. So it gives that opportunity for the 8th graders to be mentors to the 7th graders as well. We're going to be playing the same piece of music, which brings like I said, the mentorship role to the 8th graders, and then brings the 7th grade level up a little bit too. They have to play a little bit more challenging music. For the cost that you can see up there, we did a parking lot fundraiser, and we were able to get the conference registration paid for as well as the security overnight. So there'll be security that walks the hallways the whole night so that we get to go to sleep. The total cost per student, I figured was about $111.25. That's kind of estimating the bus cost based on the form. We are hoping to apply for a grant to get some of that paid for. I have reached out to food services because we are going overnight. They do have pizza lunch provided, but I thought about, well, if we need to get breakfast for them and we need to get dinner for them, that's putting a lot more cost on them. So I reached out to food service to see if there's a possibility to do like non-perishable bagged dinners, bagged breakfasts, so that financial burden is lessened. And the breakfast was $15 a student. I don't know if any of you pay $15 for breakfast. So I thought that would kind of help with the financial burden on parents and make that a little bit less for them.
And for uniform, they wear t-shirts, the Elkhorn band t-shirts, so the 8th graders would have theirs from last year because we use the same design shirts. The 7th graders would be buying one.
How many chaperones are you planning to do?
That we're trying to still figure that out because for Six Flags we needed more because we had them go in groups. It gets a little stickier with chaperones in hotel rooms because then you have to have permission from other parents if another child is going to be in the room with that, which then can up the cost for the chaperones. So we're still kind of trying to figure out how many chaperones we need based on I have 115 students in 7th and 8th grade band.
Will all of them, or do you think some of them will not?
Some of them won't. I'm hoping that the majority of them do.
So is that Memorial Day weekend?
It's the Thursday going into the Friday.
Yeah.
So there may be some that would go out of town earlier. That's it.
All right, have you shown the cost to the students or families yet?
We have not yet. I didn't want to do anything until we had everything approved, and we're going to, like as I said, apply for a grant to hopefully lessen the cost for them.
Do you have any other fundraising opportunities between now and then?
We don't have anything set up.
We were talking about like that we could look into something and
Yeah.
get something else going.
Any other questions? To proceed with this, they would need a motion for approval. So do we have any motions?
I move to approve the overnight travel request from the EAMS band department as presented.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second to approve the overnight travel request from the Oakland Middle School band as presented. We need a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Dayhart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell is excused, Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Motion is carried. So if you want to come back and tell us what happened, we appreciate that.
Thank
You've all been very brave to take up. on
I would- I-
on an overnight. I compliment you for your bravery.
Quite honestly, what scares me more than anything is trying to keep track of them in a water park. I had a hard time keeping track of 3 boys in a water park, let alone 107.
We came back with all of them for Six Flags.
And I have a water park
All right, thank you very much. Okay, next we have high school new AP pre-cal sports proposal.
Hello, Sarah Bosch, Sixth Form Director of Instruction, and tonight I have with me Mrs. Becky Ritzlack from the Math Department. She's our co-department chair. So we are here tonight to request approval for a new course that we would like to offer in the Math Department. It's AP pre-calculus. The College Board has decided to create this opportunity starting in the 23-24 school year. And Becky noticed that this was going to be an offering and approached Mr. Keel and myself and said, hey, what do you guys think? We think this would be an excellent opportunity for our students, especially our students who start off with algebra when they first come into the high school, and this would be an opportunity for them, especially if they're interested in a STEM career, to be ready for help when they get into college. For our students who start algebra before they even come to the high school, this will help them to be better prepared to be able to take AP calculus when they are in high school. And another benefit of being able to take this course is that they potentially could get out of taking college algebra because this could take the place of that. So the Math Department did go ahead and create a pathways document that's linked in the agenda, just to kind of show how this opportunity would open things up just a little bit more for students with their pathway in the Math Department. One of the huge benefits to this is that students who are taking Algebra 2 would be able to jump right into taking pre-calculus now with an AP pre-calculus offering instead of having to take that prerequisite of honors Algebra 2. So there's lots of arrows, I know, but it's nice to have lots of opportunities and options. So we're wondering what questions you have for us.
So why did, you said EPI just.
The AP College Board just.
Okay, yeah, so why did they do that now? I mean, what is the precursor to doing this?
Yeah, all the opportunities that I basically just listed off, I stole from the AP College website. They said these are the opportunities that you will be able to be able to benefit from by offering this to your students.
I think that going from, say, honors algebra to AP calculus is a big leap.
It is.
Because I had 3 students who did it. And there was a lot of struggle there. I think this AP pre-calc would have been a nice stepping stone to that. So I think it's a great idea.
Shows a need. That so many kids could benefit from.
I think once you get to that algebra 2 level and above, and the reality is you're in that college level math. And yeah, I like that it's adding that opportunity. You're already at that college level. It gives that universally recognized, lack of better term, credential, or sort of if you pass this AP exam, the vast majority of universities may transfer that in and take care of it.
Yeah.
The cynical part of me says, I can't believe AP didn't figure out how to do that. That's more money for them.
Right.
And then for regular algebra, or regular algebra 2 students be able to take pre-calc, AP pre-calc, or would it just be to honors?
With some exceptions, most of the regular Algebra 2 11th graders would open a new door into regular pre-calculus. If there was a strong desire to move into the AP, we would probably make that exception. But ideally, with offering them both, there'd be a pathway between the two. If they tried AP and it didn't work, the door would still be open, not to drop completely, but go to pre-calculus and still experience that rigor.
Yeah.
you have any idea of the number of students that you foresee taking this?
I did poll them last year. What if I misreading it?
That would be a no for me.
Regular was hard enough. In talking to my classes right now, I'd say they're kind of 50-50. But I think once it's actually out there, I hope more kind of accept the challenge of AP.
And I know that at least in my grade, we're a very competitive grade when it comes to academics. And I know I've talked to a lot of my friends and they wish AP Pre-Calc was there before they made it to AP Calculus.
Yep.
So that's some of that I've heard.
So you don't necessarily see this as one of those classes that just occurs every other year because of the number of students in that, or possibly, I mean, we don't know yet.
I don't know yet, but no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think,
Yeah, with a school our size, because we run 2 sections of AP Calc, right?
Okay.
I would assume we probably get to where we're running 2 sections of AP Pre-Calc.
will you put the flow chart back up, please?
That's what I was just gonna ask, how many sections right now of pre-calc do you have?
3 this year.
Okay.
What we really see probably happening is that functions and trig class not getting as many students as it does right now, and more students shifting into that pre-calculus and jumping into the AP pre-calculus. But who knows what will happen?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I would just like to say, as one of the kids who struggle more in pre-calc, I would like to say be a lot, because then kids who feel like they need less time can then take this opportunity, and then kids like me who needed more time on the units can then have it because they're not being strayed one way or the other. There's my input.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a junior right now, so I think it's take the next year. So it'll be first and second try.
The AP class would have to be
Right?
first year.
We're all signing up for AP pre-calc. Yeah, I know, I'm not here. Trust me.
I mean, any other questions for Collins?
I think it's a great idea. So this is something brand new that's being offered by the AP.
College curriculum.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know other schools that have had? Well, they're.
Nobody-
Nobody
yeah,
has,
yeah,
brand new. Right.
So have you looked at the curriculum compared? I mean, have you seen the actual curriculum?
It's similar, our curriculum, and I'll have to go to the summer institute
Sure.
and talk to the other teachers who are gonna teach it, and I guess we'll all experience it together.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, we're looking for a motion to get this course approved.
I move to approve the new high school course proposal as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the new high school course proposal as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes?
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
now, excuse, Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Yes, motion is carried.
Thank you all so much. She's still debating if she wants to take it.
She'll be fine.
I'll be gone. I'll be gone. Back to summer school.
All right, next we have the regular and closed session school board meeting minutes of October
Thank you, Becky.
24th,
for bringing that.
2022.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I believe that we can approve them together, or did
No,
someone
it's-
not attend?
Just not the students.
It just didn't think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
okay.
we were on there.
So we need separate motions. So we should start with the regular board minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the October 24th, 2022 regular session school board meeting as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the regular school board meeting minutes of October 24th, 2022. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell's excused. Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
Ms. Colton?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Now we're looking at the closed session school board minutes. Do you have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the October 24th, 2022 closed session school board meeting as presented.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve the closed session school board meeting minutes of October 24th, 2022 is presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Excused. Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
And Ms. Williams?
Motion is carried. Next, we have general and other fund bills. Mr. Truon.
The general and other fund bills this evening covers checks number 147743 through 147890, wire numbers 406 to 417, and ACH check number 242 through 296. The combined amount of $740,733.17. And then there was some additional information on several of the bills in the board packet.
Do you have any questions or comments?
Bill, can you remind me, what is EduSeer? I know it's something that our students enroll in.
That is online instruction,
Okay.
action school, and
Okay.
it's mostly foreign language courses.
Oh,
It's
okay.
all foreign language.
It's, okay,
It's something we just.
okay.
And could you also address what the Bullwall renewal is from Rika USA, I think it is?
Yeah, it's a cyber security system, Paul.
Okay.
And to give you a better summary of what that software does, but it constantly monitors our systems for any type of threats, and if it recognizes such, even like on an individual PC, it will like automatically shut down that individual PC.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just didn't recognize anything on there. It's like, what's this? It was pretty lofty, that's why. And then a couple other ones, the discrepancies on the phone service for our schools. I mean, $91 up to $1,900. And I know some of that would be usage, but that seems like a pretty vast stretch. Is it all TDS?
Is it a TDS invoice you're looking at, Paul?
I don't know what I'm looking at. I just saw the services for, let me scroll down and find it.
While you're looking for that, also with the cybersecurity, we're using some of our federal dollars to be able to fund that.
Okay.
For the cybersecurity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that also help at all with insurance, having extra security?
It helps in the sense that they're requiring us to have it.
Oh, okay,
So
so,
it's a discount.
Yeah.
We basically don't have a choice.
If you want to be covered, you'll have.
It's like a 6-page list we go through in terms of our application.
Okay.
I don't see any of those for TDS, so.
Yeah, I guess I'm having trouble, Paul, understanding which one you're looking at.
Is that WISNet maybe?
It just had all the schools and service for phone service. Every one of the schools is listed. And I'm scrolling down trying to find it right now.
I see the heat and the electric and the maintenance.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember.
But
Yeah.
the thing that just concerned me or brought my attention was the big differences, and I would think that the district office or the high school would be the highest use of our phone systems, but their bills were actually much lower.
I could see options despite being small,
Yeah.
using the phones all.
Yeah, I think probably the largest one might have been Tibbetts because we have the T1 line out there.
Okay.
On a credit card maybe?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
it's on a
just
credit
like,
card.
so it wouldn't be under TDS.
No.
Okay.
But
That's
ultimately,
what I was wondering.
that's who we're paying.
Correct, correct.
We get rebates.
Right, no, I know, I mean, it makes sense to me. We went to, doing that a lot with the town.
Not sure that answers your question, Paul, but I can follow up if you want me to.
Yeah, I can look, as like I said, I saw it earlier today and then I made a note, but I can't find it scrolling right now. And then just wondering on fund balances or whatever, I noticed that there's all kinds, or not all kinds, but a few under REMA for football supplies. Is that just that the account can cover those, or?
Probably the middle school program.
Or was it youth football, Paul?
It just says, football club, 21 high school football supplies, and,
Yeah. If it's
and-
21, all the 21 that's coming from their fundraising account, for the
Right.
football program.
okay. Okay, yeah, I just saw it just, there's welding supplies, football supplies, football club. It was just like, I didn't see where that would fall under her umbrella, basically. But,
But the coach may have to have her, or the club leader may have to have her do it.
I think we need to just follow up on that one.
Sure.
and that's fine. I just thought I'd ask the question because, like, it just confused me. It's easy to do.
Oh, here it was, it's under Tracy Simons, her credit card. Westside Phone Service, Jackson, Tibbetts, all that on there. And Tibbetts was more, but Westside was up there.
Yeah, some of it's Spectrum.
It says phone service, yeah, TDS and, no, all those three are, all those are TDS.
Oh,
So if you're wondering why Tracy's name shows up, because she does the accounts payable, so we use her credit card to process those, and then we get rebates back.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, so that's what that is. Good
Yeah,
question.
and as far as Jess Ramey or someone else using it is, in crediting to that account, there may have been something that she had purchased that I had said you could use the football fundraising account for to cover, because there was a tie-in or relation to that, but I'd have to go back and look and see, I'm not recalling off the top of my head.
This is too long.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, to take care of this, we have a motion to approve any payments of bills.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of November 14th, 2022, check numbers 147-743 to 147-890, wire numbers 406 to 417, and ACH numbers 242 to 296, in the combined amount of $740,733.17 as presented.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve the general and other fund bills of November 14th, 2022. Check number 147743 to 147-890, wire numbers 406 to 417, ACH numbers 242 to 296, in the combined amount of $740,733.17 as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell excused, Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yes.
and Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Now we're up to report and discussion items, and student representative report will be handled by Ms. Colton tonight.
It's been 3 weeks, so it made today's presentation pretty easy. Lots of stuff. Click on the words, school board October. There you go.
I don't know why he does that sometimes and doesn't others. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. So at Westside, in science, I believe they were dissecting owl pellets. They did their weekly reading buddies. They had a Disney dress up day. And those are some of the students in their costumes. And then in art class, we did royalty self-portraits. And then at Titus, they're staying organized with Avid. They're doing word, like phrases in English right now. They have their pumpkin patch. And then those are the two pictures. Keep going with those. And then at Jackson, they implemented, which I thought was pretty cool, because like we didn't have that at Westside. They did leapfrogs in art class, and then kindergartners made turkeys for the upcoming.
Pretty good turkey.
The middle school, the band took a field trip to the high school. They're doing orthographic sketches, I believe, in tech ed. And then the sixth graders are we're doing an experiment with dry ice.
Could I ask you-
Orthographics.
That's what I was just going to ask you. What is that?
So I'm pretty sure to do with, it's either science or tech ed. So I know in science they're doing their orthopedic like boots.
Orthographic sketches is a 3-view drawing. It's the front, the top, and the right side view of an object.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh, sure. And an isometric is a perspective drawing in 3 dimension.
Old school drawing.
Yep.
Spoken like a tech ed teacher.
And then at the high school, the 4 girls on the golf team are in academic excellence.
Cool.
So that just means they got like, I think it was like a 3.5 or better. And then on the right, it's the team, and they did a charity with the Waterford esports team. And then this week was also the start of this week and last week was the start of winter sports. So that's, yes. And then at options, they did their trunk or treat, and then they had a game night last week.
Nice.
And then CCA, they did a countertop installation. Yep. And then they had a construction event with, they brought in a bunch of the local construction people, which is cool. And then, Mr. McBurney from the middle school emailed me and Emma and wanted us to read this out. Some of the things that's just going on. This was their 2nd year of iDiscover launch this November, and this allowed students to take like additional classes during their study hall. So they have 10 middle schoolers right now on track to earn their first aid and CPR certification through this program. This past Saturday, the Middle School Builders Club had approximately 50 volunteers that packaged school supplies, small toys, and hygiene items for their Operation Christmas Child that is going to be sent around the world to like bring joy to kids that might not have those items. And then today, the Elkhorn Kiwanis Club, Wassa Homes and Adams Electric joined the middle school students for their ribbon cutting on the outdoor classroom because they just finished that. So that's just kind of what you wanted us to read out, to let you guys know. That concludes.
Thank you very much. Always interesting to see you guys present. Thank you. Then next we have first reading of revised 459 wellness policy. Tadlock?
All right, this are just some minor changes to our wellness policy in order to bring it further in compliance with what the best recommendations are. So we'll note that, and much of, what's been put in here added, we're actually already doing. It just gives the clarification that gives us a better score on our policy. They actually, I think it's our only policy that gets scored by a state organization. It's probably why it's our biggest policy, because it's required to have. So for example, Drinking water's always been available during meal times, but now it's at no cost. The water fountains are always there, and we've never charged for that. But putting that in clarifies it really did, you know.
Well, I was wondering when you added at no cost, if that meant you gave them bottled water or if they just get a cup and could.
We just have our drinking fountains.
Okay, well, that's, makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think you buy bottled water, but we don't get the bottled water.
Okay.
But, we do have the drinking fountains there and the bottle fillers. Although reduced lunch application, so this is new language that's being added just to make sure that's included in the policy there. Nutrition, education. We've always provided that nutritional education as part of that health programming and that guidance programming from elementary all the way up through middle school and then in the high school. Also health lessons integrated into the curriculum, health education program. Physical activity.
So more or less stock language that we've added.
Yeah. Basically looking at, okay, what were we missing from the rubric from before? And then identifying that and in looking at it, there was nothing that would require any significant change to what we were already doing. It was really just, we need to add this language.
Yeah. And we use the Smarter Lunchroom self-assessment scorecard. I imagine that's done by personnel. Or is that part of, school nutrition services? So I'm assuming that's the.
So, yes.
Right, so they do
Yes.
whatever this is.
Our food service staff would do a self-evaluation, but then also the state will come in and do evaluations and inspections.
Yeah, they come in periodically, I think it's every 3 or 4 years, and do monitoring.
Okay.
Those our kitchens are inspected twice a year.
And who inspects that?
Department of Health and.
Yeah.
They do the kitchens and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you is on the, right in the beginning there, it talks that it references the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. So I clicked on that link and I noticed in there doesn't have any limits on the amount of sugar. And I'm just wondering, why don't we have limits on the amount of sugar that we're feeding the young kids when it's probably double what they should be taking? Just a question.
I think that'd be a great question for the FDA, I suppose, or whoever puts together federal
Well, it clearly isn't in there.
health and,
And the things haven't been improved, 2010, I'm sure there's been more studies since then. Just why we're referencing that standard is my question.
I think it's normally a rare treat for us to get like cookies and stuff at lunch. That's what we do.
But I think there's sugar in.
No, it's,
Like there's sugar in fruit cups, there's sugar in other things.
Right.
This says, if you read that link, it says school meal patterns and flexibilities for school year 2018-2019. So I think it's updated more than the 2010.
and I would have to, I guess I would invite, that'd be a good question for our food service director, but they do have very specific guidelines, which also would include the sugar. So I don't know in regards to that link in that act, but for example, that's why when they're selling the brownies, they can sell the black bean brownies, which have a limited amount of sugar.
no, I would welcome a discussion
criteria
about
there.
what we're providing.
But that's what we're currently under is the federal guidelines, and those are the minimums that we have to meet for that. And they do have nuanced things from agriculture agencies, lobbying, for example, getting to count. And I can't speak to it, it's not my area of expertise, but counting ketchup or tomato paste as a fruit or a vegetable on, certain food items. There's things that are included in that as part of the federal nutrition program, but I'm certainly not an expert on that, but that's, as participants in the federal nutrition program, they have minimum number of standards that we would need to meet. If the school board wanted to go beyond that, there's nothing that would prevent the school board from putting in greater restrictions on that if the school board wanted to. They would just need to have a very good understanding of the potential consequences related to that, or that's something the food service could speak to.
Yeah, no, I'd be curious if there are specific limitations, in the standards that we say we're adhering to, particularly with respect to sugar content. And all its definitions. But yeah, so if those exist, I'm sure our food services person could provide that to the rest of
Yeah,
the
we
board.
can invite her to a future board meeting to go over, we can why don't we invite her to come for the next board meeting?
Right, before the
She can
policy.
speak to approving the second reading.
Okay.
And she could speak to and break down exactly what the number of proteins, the grams, and, because it does get down to.
Yeah.
My understanding is the specificity of the number of grams that I can have within each category. And because I know they use an application where they, drag and drop.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I have with this meal. Oh, that's too high. I need to
Yeah.
substitute something else.
I know the ingredients in terms of even our website, in terms of the menu, you can click on the different items and it tells you the content, the nutrition contents of all the items, so.
Do we do special meals for, let's say, someone who's diabetic or someone
Yes.
who's
Oh, yeah.
allergies? So parents can
Yeah,
say,
that's-
my child has this, can't have that.
Yes.
You do that all the time.
That's what I thought, but I was just making
I mean,
sure.
I think it would be good for
That's
Tori to
good
do
to know.
that as a report, maybe.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
could address some of this. Now,
Yeah.
we need to share everything. She's also going on maternity leave.
Oh,
Oh, that's
okay.
right.
We'll see how scheduling goes, but if it's something for this policy, I'm sure she could address just those items.
You think she could share, just so we are.
Oh, yeah,
the next
for the next
meeting.
board meeting.
That's part of the reason why I thought sooner rather than later would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I agree.
And she knows it inside and out, so I don't think it's
Yeah.
a whole lot to share. Here's our
Right.
nutrition guidelines, here's how that works.
Okay, no, thank you.
So we'll make a note to add Tori as part of the second reading. That's all right.
If you have any comments or questions, let Jason know between now and then anyway too.
Okay.
But that was good. You brought up. All right, we're on to personnel recommendations of the administrator.
All right, let me pull up. Okay, we had a number of resignations. Those are all listed there. We want to thank Rebecca, Sean, Abby, Ted, and Jill for their service to the school district. There's also a number of appointments there. You'll see Sherry Knoll, Kendra Kroll, Taylor Gibbs, Angelica Howe, and William Tiso and Brenda Lickner as cooks, special education assistants, and custodians respectively. Then Karen McShay is a special education para, Elena Jeffries, girls basketball assistant coach, and then Alyssa Ambrose is a high school boys swimming assistant coach, and Eli Timish is a high school wrestling assistant coach. She's also our director of buildings and grounds. Dan Stilling is high school wrestling head coach, and Vince Omnis is a high school boys basketball assistant coach. And I will knock on wood, but for the first time this year, our special education staff is full staff.
Wow.
So,
You've got Dan Stilling, can you move it over?
Yeah, Dan and
He's
Eli
an
are-
assistant, I guess.
Dan and Eli.
Dan's the
Yeah,
head.
Sherry, you said head coach, and I was
Yeah.
sure it was his brother.
Oh, I'm
They're
sorry, I
brothers,
got the
yeah.
Stillings mixed up.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jake is.
Thank you.
Up
Yeah,
the
Jake
last
was
one.
on the last
Yeah.
board meeting, right?
That's fine.
All right. Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
apologize.
great.
I'm getting the Stilling brothers mixed up. Jake is the head coach, Dan and Eli are shins.
And two graduates, bottom two are Elkhorn kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, good quality coaches following them, yeah. After all these years.
Yeah.
So that's nice. So, anybody have any more comments or questions on that? If not, we'll need a motion to approve any personnel.
I move to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for November 14, 2022, including new employment contracts conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for November 14th, 2022 as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Donald is excused, Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Now we have acceptance of school gifts. Mr. Chadlock.
Okay, yes, we have a number of several school gifts for this evening. First, Wendy Ellsworth is donating a trumpet valued at $500. Sugar Creek Lutheran Church is donating $1,000 for the Snack and a Pack program. And the Jackson Elementary PTA is donating $981 to the library from the profits of the book fair.
Again, what a generous community. Do we need a motion to accept those?
I move to accept the generous school gifts as presented.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, second to accept the school donations from Wendy Ellsworth, Sugar Creek Lutheran Church, and Jackson Elementary PTA as presented. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Donald excused, Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yes.
and Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Next item is the 2021-22 financial audit and management letter. I don't know if that's Mr. Chadlock or Mr.
I got all 95 pages.
Did you get all
Yeah.
95? Some of you did,
Lucky
is
me.
that right?
You got all the.
If you didn't, I have 12 copies of the 95 pages.
You can have it right by your bed.
It's all 95 copies too. So, but what you have here this evening is the conclusion of the audit work that Riley Penner Benson has prepared for the school district from. The process starts in May and it basically runs until about the end of October. They're out on site twice during that time in May, and then they're out here a week in July. And there's a lot of communication in between where they need a lot of information. So there's really 3 reports here. There's kind of the management letter piece, which I think is the first section. And then there's our financial statements. And then you might notice at the very end, there's another financial statement, and that is for the CCA program or the grant that we received for the charter school, and that federal grant required a separate audit for that.
Okay.
So that's why you kind of see that almost repetitive in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I see
that's,
that.
yeah, so that's where you have the 3 reports. Management letter, they highlighted a couple of new upcoming GASB standards. That's a group of accountants that come up with more accounting requirements, basically. So I think those are the first 2 items. They had an entry that we simply didn't make, that we could have made had I known they wanted us to make it, to be honest with you, but they told us after the fact. So typically in an audit process, you have a number of what's called auditor entries. We had 1 this year, so that's pretty good really for our school district at our
Really?
size,
Yeah.
the number of activities that we have going on.
Yeah.
So overall, though, I think that they didn't have any other, highlights. Did they have any disagreements? Were we cooperative and all of that?
That was like,
They were
they
just
cooperated
suggesting
in
that we
everything.
move something from journal entry.
Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
to a certain extent, I think they almost, I don't say they have to come up with something, but I
Yeah.
think there are some recommendations.
They got pretty nitpicky with that one.
need. So,
Yeah, you didn't have the one parent approval form.
yeah.
So,
Anyway,
it's
so,
just
but
been
they're doing the
corrected.
job, that's what they
Yeah,
do,
no,
so.
no.
But it's good, because I mean, that ensures that we're doing,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
stewards of our resources, so.
Absolutely.
The financial statements themselves, the first, I think, 10 pages, what's called the management discussion and analysis, and that's really, I put that section together after the financial statements are completed, where that's a requirement. And we kind of talk about the summary of the document that follows. That's what that's supposed to be. And then what follows then is our actual financial statement. There's district-wide statements, there's what I'll call fund statements, which really I think is what makes no sense for us. So I think that starts on, I think page 18 has kind of the general fund revenues, expenses, and then fund balance, and you see our debt service and other funds. There's a chart in there that talks about long-term debt, which by state statute, our debt cannot exceed 10% of our property value. And even without the increase we had this year, we were at about 1.5%. So we're even much less than that now. And then there's supplement information where they compare budget to actual. The other, what they call non-government funds. So that would include community service, food service, and some of those are described in a little more detail. And then there's also a single audit component that they do for federal programs. And then they list all of the monies that come from state and federal government and all their sources and the dollar values associated with that. So it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I told you, you know, when I started in this
thicker and
business,
thicker every year.
yeah, the report was probably 20 pages and
Yeah.
now it's 95. But
Wow.
It all started with Enron.
a lot of change.
It did,
You're
it
right.
changed, totally changed.
Right.
Yeah.
So certainly if you have questions, I'm more than willing to go through in more detail with you. We also always post this to our website, so it's available to the public. And then a number of financial institutions request this on an annual basis. So.
So the one that talked about the one employee had a portion of their respective wages charged to Medicaid.
I think that was last year.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah, because
One.
this is,
Yeah.
this is covering two.
Yeah, it
Right,
reports, it reports what was suggested last year and then the
Right,
status of
right.
those.
Right, and that was corrected, but
Correct.
that was just, I mean, how do you correct that? Just change that?
We changed report, we can go back.
Right.
Yeah, which we did. And then the area we probably struggled the most was licensing for our special ed
Right, and we talked
professionals.
about that,
And I
yeah.
think with some of the reimbursement pieces with getting their license, that should take care of that piece. And we never charged anyone to the account for aides anyway, but I think because they showed up as not having a license piece, it still shows up in our report.
Mhm. And so how are we changing, I mean, our inventory, just, we weren't quite getting that whole inventory of the computers in.
Yeah, it really had to do with our Chromebooks, and we got a special, it's called a federal connectivity grant that Randy Durkin was able to obtain, so it was like $250,000 that offset really our Chromebook purchases for that year. So that required a special single audit piece, so when we went through the records on that, it's more of our internal record keeping.
Okay, so we've corrected what I needed to do.
I think we need a motion to accept the letter, which I don't know
Yep.
what the consequence of not accepting.
I don't know, I always wondered, because we didn't create the report, so how can we really accept it when we didn't create it?
It's probably just
Well-
an official recognition that the
That we
report was
received
presented.
it.
Yeah, we're just accepting it as submitted, we're not
Yeah.
making any statements that it's
We're not
right.
Right.
making any judgments, that we're just accepting that they.
Because they say in there too, they say, well, we're doing it the stuff we looked at, but we didn't look at every single thing, so we're not saying there are other
It's not an
mistakes.
approval, it's just an
Right, but no for them,
Yeah.
yeah. So do we have such a motion?
I'll move to accept the 2021-2022 financial audit management letter as presented.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to accept this financial audit and management letter as presented. Roll call vote. please.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell excused. Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Sparrow?
Yes.
Ms. Colton?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Creation of an ad hoc committee for development of a staff student recognition program, Mr. Tedlock.
All right, it had a request from a board member. I think we had some minimal discussion last time that this would be something we'd like to look at in light of some discussion and requests from some community members on recognition of former athletic coach, which led to a discussion of, well, then how do we recognize this other coach or this other individual? So it would be best to create an ad hoc committee, which is an official committee of the board that's designated to bring a recommendation to the school board for consideration. So I have a sample motion in there. I guess as part of that, board members can or don't have to serve on that committee as well. Typically, you wouldn't have a majority of the board on that, but having a couple representatives on there is perfectly all right. We've done ad hoc committees in the past, for example, looking at referendum recommendations. So just looking for that authorization, and then I'll work to coordinate and designate either some leadership on that and getting that ad hoc committee rolling to bring a recommendation back to the board.
We have a motion. Does anybody have any questions for us?
As we look at that, are we going to break that down into different recognitions? Are we going to do one for Wilson Yankee, focus on them, and then the others like the Cole Fellowship Award winners, the teachers and club advisors that are state and nationally recognized? Or are we going to divide that up, or are we going to just throw it into as one ad hoc committee? Because I think we want to really start moving and make some decisions, especially with the Wilson Yankee type of motions.
So it sounds like we've got our first volunteer for the ad hoc committee.
Yes, I definitely would, and
And I think you should probably chair it, Paul, because you've got a lot of background in that and so forth. But I would be yes to all of the above. I think those are all decisions and recommendations that need to be made, unless a board member wanted to bring up or put forward a motion separate from the ad hoc committee piece. But that was my intent, was that I thought it would be good for the ad hoc committee to bring recommendations to the board, as no community organization has brought anything formally forward or presented to the board for consideration.
Okay, Paul?
well, I guess, do we start formulating an ad hoc committee? Do we start canvassing for members? Do we tell them to what depth we're going? Are we going with just the recognition of Dean and Paul right now, or are we doing a overall district recognition? Because I think that's a pretty immense undertaking. But I know that if you broke it down into the Yankee Wilson and then just advertised for willing participants to that committee, that would be immense. And then if we want to do something else as well, that would be fine and a big project as well. But I don't want to get it lost up in trying to do too much with too little. Because I think what Chris Stebnitz has already done is wonderful, but I don't know that it hits the nail on the head.
Don't you think though that's what the ad hoc committee would talk about?
Yeah.
It's not like we have to do it tomorrow.
Well, I think what the problem is if it's just an ad hoc committee, are we focusing on that, or are we focused on all recognitions for all students and staff and that as a project? I think those should be two different projects.
I would like to see the ad hoc committee discuss it first. If we need to break out and have two separate committees, we can do that, but I think it should come into one thing. Just, we gotta get started somewhere. What type of products are we gonna use? Much less who specifically is going to be on it.
Correct.
But how do we want to
There
present
needs to be an overall vision and a
Right.
plan
Right.
for,
before we can start?
before you can start honoring individuals.
Correct.
I agree.
Any other comments or questions? If you would like to make a motion to proceed with this, so Jason knows how to proceed.
I'll move to approve the creation of the ad hoc committee of a staff student recognition program as presented.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the creation of an ad hoc committee for the development of staff student recognition program as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
O'Donnell is excused, Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yes.
and Ms. Williams.
Yes.
So the motion has carried,
So as part of that, is there anyone, Paul, I know you would like to be on the ad hoc committee. Is there anyone
Yes.
else on that? As board members? Okay. Then, I'm sorry, what? Kevin? Excellent.
Good, because otherwise I was gonna point you.
I don't want to do the volunteers, I thought.
yeah.
Then I think, yeah, moving forward, Paul or Kevin would like to get together so we can get the word out and start establishing dates and see how to structure that committee, what size of the committee do you want? And I think that ad hoc committee can then break down whether to bring forward several recommendations or how to do that. And I'm agnostic on it, Paul. I just want whatever will make the community happy. I think there's lots of people to recognize, and I'm doing it in a way that will honor those deserving that honor is, I think, a wonderful endeavor. And I think the committee will be able to bring some build some good consensus amongst the groups, whatever. Of stakeholders, all right. Very good. I think that's it.
Now we're down to announcements, so that's your.
All right, so the announcements, let's see. Jody wanted me to remind, school board election is coming up. The incumbents are Ginny Ray and Paul Martell. It's always a good idea to declare publicly if you will run for re-election. The Elkhorn residents interested in running for school board should contact Jody Esman in the district office for a packet of materials. The state education convention is January 18th to 20th. Board members interested in attending, please let Jody know so she can get you registered for the convention. And I think we have Barb as the delegate for the convention, and yeah, we should be good to go in that aspect. Okay, that's all I have for announcements.
All right, so I guess the next thing on the agenda would be adjourning.
So
Do we have a second?
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn, and a second, so roll call vote, please.
1 second. Who was the second?
Jen?
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell
Yes.
is excused. Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Colton,
Yeah.
and Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone online.